1 year and 7 months ago, Paul and Maggie Murdaugh were shot to death in South Carolina. Eventually, Maggie's husband and Paul's father, Alex, was charged with those murders. His trial starts today. We will bring you up to date on this case as we all prepare for the trial that some people are calling the trial of the century, at least in South Carolina. Hey everybody, and welcome to the True Crime Squad. This is Katie Weaver. I'm here with my sister, co-host, and partner in crime, Kristi Brower. Hello.
Hello. Hey, everybody.
I would say happy Tuesday. We're really recording this on Monday afternoon, which seems to matter since this is the first day of the Alec Murdaugh trial, or Alex Murdaugh trial. We skipped Monday this week because we did that big live stream and that big jaunt to court last Thursday for the Daybell trial. Upcoming Daybell trial. So, at any rate, we're a little off kilter on our dates and times, but I guess it doesn't matter at all. So,
Not really.
But we want to welcome you all if you are watching or listening or however you're partaking. Welcome so much, and hope you're having a good start to your week. Kristi, how's it going?
It's going great. Just,
Good.
living the life, doing lots of research, really down the rabbit hole today on, what cases we're doing this week. And, there's just some really sad shit out there in the world right now.
There is, and also, man, people are triggered and bonkers and yikes.
Yeah, it's true. On a good note, I've been beating and I'm having a lot of fun with that. So,
well, very good. Good. I've been working on a few things. We have some really fun stuff we're working on, but I also made a new cup last night that I think turned out really beautifully. It's hard to see it here with the reflection, but it's a snow globe, so it's full of glitter in the bottom, and yeah, I'm in love with it.
Very pretty. I like it a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I was late because I made this cup of tea.
Well, that's great.
That's as far as I get with making cups. I make cups of tea.
Cups of tea. Well, it's a cup of tea afternoon. My God, it has been very cold today.
Yes, and just quiet. Like I could just go to bed.
Me too.
Things are very quiet.
Yeah, that's how I have felt all day too. Yup. Well, let's get into it. We have a lot of ground to cover today, so I'm going to turn the mic over to you for some WTF news.
Yes. I'm pretty sure every time we have to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, it is WTF news.
Always.
You say.
Yeah.
So, for better or more likely worse, Ghislaine Maxwell got to be interviewed for Talk TV over the phone, kind of on like jail video recently, which, first of all, why is anyone talking to her?
Yeah.
Blah. Like what? What does she have to say that any of us care about? But here I am talking about it, so maybe a little.
I guess a little bit, yeah.
So, as we know, Ghislaine Maxwell, was the madam for Jeffrey Epstein and has been convicted of sex trafficking and is serving 20 years, unfortunately, in a very cushy federal prison in Florida. I was hoping she would go somewhere uncomfortable because she bawled her eyes out about being in jail during her trial to the point that everyone was just disgusted with her. But I'm more disgusted with her now because this is her first interview since being convicted and sentenced and all that stuff. And, of course, she was given the opportunity to apologize to her victims. As you can imagine, she did not apologize to her victims. She said that the young women she sex trafficked to Jeffrey Epstein should just turn their anger on the right people, and that is the authorities who allowed Epstein to take his own life in custody.
Oh, my God.
I mean,
Yes.
gaslight much?
And also, come now, I don't think any of us believe that Epstein killed himself.
No, not at all. And also, gross. I
Mhm.
mean, you're living and you've been convicted of these crimes. Ugh. She said, when asked if she would like to say sorry to her victims, she responded with, I say that Epstein died and they should take their disappointment and upset out on the authorities who allowed that to happen. The part she didn't say out loud was, instead of me who allowed the abuse to happen.
Yeah.
She skipped that part.
Well, yeah, because that wouldn't bode well for, I'm sure, the appeals they're still trying to get.
Right. She also said, and as I said, I hope that they have some closure by the judicial process that took place. That one where she was convicted of sex trafficking.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
one right there.
she wasn't complicit, right?
Now, I will say this. She shouldn't be the only one sitting in jail. She shouldn't.
Well,
There are a whole lot more
agreed.
names that should have been and still
Right.
should be held accountable for this. However, come now, Ghislaine. You did this.
Yeah.
You have been convicted of this. There's no question you did this.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
The judicial process that has taken
Yes.
place.
Wow.
Please. And then the interviewer asked her if she felt like she was also one of Epstein's victims. And she said, well, I don't actually love the use of the word victim per se. I think it's used a lot and bandied about a lot. But clearly, my association by the fact that I worked for him and spent time with him and knew him and sex trafficked for him
Mhm.
has devastated my life and hurt many people that I love and hold dear to me. I honestly wish I had never met him. Well, here's a little message for you, Ghislaine. You would be a trash human whether you met him or not. So
Mhm.
give us all a break.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought I'd share that because we kind of all like to poke a little fun at Ghislaine Maxwell because she
Mhm.
is gross and she is yet again gross
Yeah,
and tone
that
deaf
right there
as
is
hell.
beyond gross. Yep.
Yeah, the gaslighting, the judicial process that has occurred. Oh, you mean
Yes.
where you were convicted of sex trafficking and sent to prison for 20 years?
Mhm.
That judicial process? Yeah, that one.
Neat. Yeah.
So there you have it. Doesn't give a damn as usual. Not
Hmm.
sorry. Sorry, but definitely not sorry. Ghislaine
Uh,
Maxwell.
Still super privileged and trying to gaslight. Got
Yep,
it.
got it. In case you were wondering. And with that, I will kick the mic back to you for our main case.
Okay. Speaking of super privileged and still
Mm,
gaslighting,
yikes, right?
here we go. So, we've really been talking about this case from the start. And actually, I think our conversation about this case started with the attempted suicide of Alex Murdaugh,
Yeah.
of sorts.
I do not mean to laugh about this. I just cannot get over um,
Hmm.
his cousin getting charged with attempted assisted suicide.
Yeah.
For shooting him in the head,
Yeah.
unsuccessfully.
So let's back up a little bit and talk about the Murdaughs in general.
Mhm.
This is a family that has had a legal dynasty in South Carolina for over 100 years. Murdaugh's great grandfather, father, or grandfather and father were all
Mhm.
prosecutors in the area where he lives in Colleton County in
Mhm.
Waterboro, South Carolina, and in that area. And Alex also is an attorney and worked at a family firm. Uh, and he has obviously lived a life of privilege and also a life that used the law to their advantage and maneuvered around the law to do whatever they wanted.
So much.
And Alec's been doing what he's been doing for a long time, but things really came to a head for him. And so I want to start with kind of where things started with his son, Paul, back in
Mhm.
2019, and then we'll work up to where we are today. So on February 24th, 2019, his son, Paul, uh, was with a bunch of other teenagers, they had gone to an oyster roast on in on their boat, on Alex's boat, and they were boating while extremely intoxicated. And Paul was 19 at the time. And while he was drunk off his ass, he was driving a boat with five people, five friends in it, and he struck a piling of a bridge.
Mm.
And it threw one of the girls from the boat and killed her.
Yeah,
In fact, she wasn't found for several days.
that's so awful.
Her name was Mallory Beach. Yeah, it was a week before they found Mallory's body. And of course, everyone who was injured, they were all injured, they were all taken to a hospital. And Alec Murdaugh showed up at the hospital and started going in every one of their rooms, first of all, demanding that they not speak to authorities about what happened, and also trying to convince some of them to tell authorities that this other boy was driving the boat when it happened.
Oh, gross.
Which, turned out to not be true, but he was
Right.
immediately going into defense mode and trying to protect his son and essentially his estate from this
Mhm.
accident. Yeah, I guess just, screw Mallory and her family.
Yeah, sorry this girl died. However,
Yeah,
such trash, man. Ugh.
such trash. So on May 6, 2019, Paul was arraigned on felony charges of boating under the influence that
Mhm.
in that event. And it's a really weird this happened. I mean, he wasn't even charged for 70 days after this accident. He'd been indicted by a grand jury 2 weeks beforehand.
Wow.
And the local community was a little pissed. They're like, sorry, so why is that happening? People are starting to kind of get wise to the Murdaughs and get tired of the Murdaughs.
Oh, for sure. But I think it might actually have been because they wanted this case to be airtight because he was a Murdaugh. But it could have
Definitely.
also been interference on dad's part as well. Maybe there was some of
Easily.
both.
Easily. Yep. So then on June 7th of 2021, so 2 years later, Alex called 911 a little after 10 p.m. and said that he had just discovered the bodies of his wife Maggie and his son Paul. They were at their family's hunting property that's called Moselle in Islandton. That's
Mhm.
in Colleton County. Uh, he called the dispatch and said, "My wife and child have been shot badly." And he told investigators that he had been visiting his parents that night and got back to the property and found these two out by the dog kennel shot. So the coroner said they died somewhere between 9 and 9:30. And he's saying, "Well, I just got here at 10:06. I'd been at my parents' house."
Mhm.
Well, on June 23rd, this is all happening like at the same time. So catch that.
Mhm.
They South Carolina law enforcement decided to open an investigation into the death of a boy named Stephen Smith. Stephen Smith
Mhm.
in 2015. And Stephen Smith was a boy who died very near their property
Yeah.
from a hit and run that was ruled a traumatic head injury. He had been 19. So this was on a rural road just miles from their hunting estate. And in the 2015 Highway Patrol case notes, Alex's older son, Buster, is mentioned 9 times, and yet
Mm.
charges were never brought.
Mhm.
Nothing ever happened with that. It just kind of went away. Now, Stephen Smith's mother has always said that she felt like this was a hate crime against her son. He was gay. He had
Mhm.
been targeted by some of these local rich bitch kids, like the Murdaugh kids. And
Mhm.
she had always felt like this was absolutely a targeted attack. It wasn't an accident in any way.
Yeah.
And so finally, the authorities say, all right, you know what? We're going to open this up and take a look at it. On September 3rd, 2021, Alex Murdaugh gets fired from the family law firm he's working at because they have finally come to terms and to come to grips with the fact that he has been illegally siphoning millions of dollars from his clients and from the law firm itself.
Yeah. Awkward family law firm.
Yeah. On September 4th, so that was September 3rd. On
Mhm.
September 4th of 2021, Alex yet again calls 911. He says he's been shot in the head while he was changing a tire on the side of the road. So they come, and as it turns out, he has a kind of grazed by a bullet in the head. He's not
Yeah.
really shot in the head. Um, and he ends up telling police that it was Curtis Smith. Well, Curtis Smith, they pick up Curtis Smith. Curtis Smith turns out to be a kind of a loose associate and distant cousin of Alex, who says,
Mhm.
no, he wanted me to shoot him. He paid me to shoot him in the head. We
Yeah.
staged it to look like it was just, somebody shot him while he was changing a tire. None of those things really happened. But Curtis chickened out. So we ended up shooting at him, but not hitting him.
Mhm.
Why would he do such a thing? Well, he had it all arranged with Curtis so that he would shoot him, and then his son Buster would get a $10 million insurance payout.
Yep.
Why would Alex do such a thing? Well, we learn a lot more down the road about how much his life was crumbling and how much trouble he was in.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, they both get arrested and are charged with insurance fraud as well as a few other things associated
Attempted
with that.
assisted suicide
Yes,
on
attempted
Curtis Smith's
assisted
part.
suicide. Yes. On September 6th, 2 days later, Murdaugh does go ahead and resigns from the law firm that he's actually already been removed from
Mhm.
and travels to a Florida rehab center, claiming that he has had decades long opioid addiction that's been a big secret. So
Yes.
he's in Florida hiding out in rehab while his attorney, I am not making this up, his name is Dick Harpootlian. Such an unfortunate name.
Everything about this case is insane, including that attorney's name.
Including that name.
Yeah.
Dick Harpootlian kind of tries to keep it from prosecutors or from authorities where he is. He's in rehab. He's dealing with his issues right now.
Mhm.
And it worked for a minute. But then by October 14th, authorities said, nah, no. We've got all kinds of shit we need to talk to him about. And they arrest him in Orlando and they make him come back.
Yeah.
At that point, what they arrest him for has to do with yet another death that happened on his watch,
On his property.
on his property. This is Gloria Satterfield. She was a housekeeper for the Murdaughs, and supposedly she fell down the stairs in 2018 at Moselle and died. It was all very sketch. And Alex
Mhm.
Murdaugh made an arrangement with her sons to use a friend of his as their attorney to sue his estate, essentially his insurance,
Mhm.
to get them a payout, a settlement because of the death of their single mother who took care of them. And, here's the problem. Alex did what Alex had been doing.
Yeah.
He kept most of the money for himself and did not give it to these boys.
Right.
So, I mean, consider this. She died on his property and still her death is being investigated. It still doesn't track.
Well, didn't he call somebody with an ambulance that he knew, and then
Hmm.
the uh,
Yeah.
and then when the body was taken to a mortuary, that was somebody he knew, and
Hmm.
they made sure to not do an in-depth autopsy, and
Hmm.
yeah,
Oh, yeah. He
using all
contrived.
his,
Yeah.
yeah.
The entire Gloria Satterfield thing. Well, when her kids finally figured out that, they had been screwed out of millions of dollars by him,
Mhm.
they had gone to authorities. So that was what he was arrested for in October and brought back to South Carolina for. So they were crimes from money laundering to fraud to breach of trust and a few other things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by May 4th, 2022, prosecutors go to a grand jury and get more indictments against him on more charges, including fraud and forgery, bringing his total at that point to 79 state charges. Most and the attorney general of the state says that at that point he had defrauded victims of $8.5 million,
My gosh.
mostly by insurance fraud scams where he would do the work and then not give them the money,
Yeah.
lie to them, make excuses, falsify documents, have payouts sent to himself rather than to the victims and things like that. He was doing it over and over and over again to try to stay afloat, because what was true is that Alex didn't really have any money. They had lived
Um,
way higher on the hog than they really could afford to. And so at this point,
well, and the opioid addiction
and the
too.
opioid addiction, yeah, he was treading water and barely keeping up with all of his financial debts, and was just committing one crime to the next to pay for the next one, and so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
since then, of course, they have uncovered that he has had multiple associates, friends, and like that stupid Curtis Smith that
Mm-hmm.
have been loosely a part of his scheme. Some of them have been defrauded by him, some of them have been a part of the fraud, but there's a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
So
He's kind of got
finally
his own
on
little crime syndicate.
yeah finally on July 12th, 2022, he gets disbarred. Well, no shit, Sherlock,
What
finally,
took you so long?
right? 2 days later, on July 14th, he's finally indicted, because all the while everyone's like, okay, yeah, nearly $9 million of fraud. Dude's a piece of shit. Gloria Satterfield's death, Mallory Beach's death, the other boy's death.
Stephen Miller, or yeah, Stephen
Yeah,
Smith.
yeah. But who killed his wife and son? Come
Right.
on, man. Who indeed, right?
Yeah. I mean, if he did all
Everyone's,
this other shit, then come on.
yeah. But the locals are like, nah. And Maggie's family is going, we want charges. What is going on? How
Yeah.
could these two just be murdered and that just go by the wayside? And it kind of
Yeah.
felt like it did for a while.
It really did. I mean,
It
it was a
just,
year
there was
before,
no talk of it. It just was like it
or was
didn't
it
happen.
2 years?
It was just a year.
Just a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah. So suddenly, out of the clear blue sky, on July 24 or July 14th, sorry, of last year of 2022, they finally indict him on 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime and 2 counts of murder. So this is what the SLED agent said. Over the last 13 months, agents and our partners have worked day in and day out to build a case against the person responsible for the murders of Maggie and Paul, and to exclude those who were not. Today is just one more step in a long process for justice for Maggie and Paul. So even though it seemed like things got pretty quiet, perhaps they did not.
Just behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. On July 20th, Murdaugh pleads not guilty, of course. And of course, the defense team says, we believe the killer or killers are still at large. Yeah, of course you do.
Sure, whatever.
At the hearing, the prosecutor said the evidence is substantial. They did not give a lot of details, though, because they had an indictment, so they didn't have to.
Right. They had grand jury did that for him.
Mm-hmm. So they do say at that point that the financial documents touch on a motive. He was denied bond. Basically, he's been in jail for about a year and a half, because as soon as all of these crimes started to unravel, he didn't have any money left. His estate,
No, and
or
no
his,
one's coming to his rescue either,
right.
because he's screwed everyone he knows, including his family.
I mean, the only person that maybe would have been his son Buster, who has been radio silent through all of this,
Wisely.
except for that their estate was frozen, their money was frozen. I mean,
Yeah.
Buster was basically probably thrown out on his ass too because there's nothing left.
Right.
I wonder how Harpootlian is getting paid. There must be some money somewhere
Yeah.
because he has really been in it for the long haul.
He
And if you
has.
think that Richard that that John Pryor's pearl clutching was intense,
Oh,
you
man.
haven't seen anything yet.
No. Harpootlian takes the cake.
He really does. So here's the motive. The motive that was rolled out in December. And here's what prosecutors are saying. They believe that he wanted to distract attention from all of his illicit schemes and to also rid himself of the problem of Paul and his upcoming lawsuit or the lawsuits that were coming up against them because of Paul's accident, because everybody wanted to sue them for that. And that was causing a real problem because 3 days after Paul died, there was supposed to be a hearing in which a judge would decide whether or not they should order a deep dive into Murdaugh's finances.
Couldn't let that happen, could
Couldn't let
we?
that happen. That was really going to F him over. So that was a part of it. The other part of it is that he was told that day at work that he had to provide an explanation for and pay a substantial payout to a client that basically he got caught that day at work. And there he was without money to pay it back and wanting to turn the tide and take the energy off of him. And so that's what he did. He murdered his wife
Didn't
and his son.
haven't prosecutors also said that they think that part of the motive also was to garner sympathy from the community?
Yeah. Hmm.
Because he knew he was about to get busted for these financial crimes, but this
Hmm.
poor man just lost his wife and son.
Yep.
Except
Yep.
nobody believed it. Nobody believed in
No.
Alex at all.
Alex believed in his privilege.
Yeah.
He believed in his privilege. The problem is the Murdaughs had overstayed their welcome
Yeah.
with their big law firm being the prosecutors for all of these years, and then the newer generation of Murdaughs coming up, like Paul and Buster, that were raising hell and tormenting the community, and people were done.
Yeah.
Their privilege and their reign of whatever was really coming to a close.
Hmm.
Then we learn just here in the last few days of two more things that are very interesting. One of them is a piece of evidence that is really key to the prosecution, and it is a Snapchat video that Paul sent to multiple friends shortly before he died.
Yeah.
Now, the word on the street is that this video was sent somewhere around 9 o'clock, and it shows Alec Murdaugh. There's no talk that it
Alex.
or Alex, yeah. There's no Alec, I keep doing it.
We're going to talk about Alec Baldwin in a
Alec
minute. I know
Baldwin,
that's
that's where
why.
it's coming from. Yep. There's we don't know exactly what the video shows. But what we're hearing is that it at least shows him in the video that's time stamped and goes out at about 9 p.m.
So
The
he's present.
problem is he's present, and he claims he didn't get there until 10:06.
Yeah.
And the coroner put the time of death somewhere between 9 and 9:30. So
Hmm.
that video is super important. So they have now subpoenaed a representative from Snapchat that has to come and be there and be present for these proceedings to testify, because we're talking about a bunch of old dinosaurs that don't know how Snapchat works. And,
Right.
they have to testify as to how this works and what was sent and
They
when it
must
was
have the
received.
video,
And
though. I mean, somebody must have saved it
I'm sure
because,
either that or Snapchat
videos
was able to
disappear.
recover it. Yeah.
Maybe they were.
But that's a part of it. We also have seen somewhat of a witness list, and Buster is on it, as well as Maggie's sister and a bunch of Paul's friends and other people. That's going to
Hmm.
get really interesting,
Well, it makes you wonder what Buster thinks of all of this with his dad,
right?
convicted, or accused of killing his mother and his brother, and
Mm-hmm.
then accused of trying to kill himself to leave. Buster's got to be like, I want nothing to do with this person.
Well, you would really, really think so. You would assume so because it's
I would
really this
think,
has
but
ruined his life as well.
right, it's
But
taken his
he has
entire family
been,
from him.
yeah, but he has been really quiet.
Yeah,
Now, a forensic report was released last week that is pretty horrific
it
ab-
is.
about the specifics of Maggie and Paul. Maggie was shot 5 times. One of those times, she was shot that she would have been on her hands and knees lifting her head up, like
Yeah,
after being shot and trying to escape, maybe, or get up
or beg him to stop or
to stop.
something.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Uh, Also, we also know now that Paul's brain was literally shot out of his head.
Yeah,
It's really terrible, and that's as detailed as I'll get about that. You can find the report online. I've read it. Regrettably, it's terrible.
it
They
is.
were
But there
shot
are
with
some
two
really
different
weird.
guns.
Yeah, and Paul was shot with two different kinds of ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
It's really strange.
Mm-hmm. Well, if Alex is guilty, he's an attorney.
Hmm.
He's seen it all.
Right.
Now he's not actually working as a criminal law attorney, but he's still an attorney, and he has, a legacy of prosecutors in his family. And it would track for me that he would do some things that would try to make it look like maybe it was two people,
Hmm.
and some things like that.
For
And using
sure.
different guns and different kinds of ammunition might be a part of that attempt.
Yeah, it really might because it's super weird. Paul was shot with birdshot and buckshot.
Yeah.
Birdshot won't kill you.
No,
Buckshot will.
it was Bugshot that did the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, there is a shirt. This is a part of the evidence that's really, really going to be that's already being hotly contested. So
Hmm.
it's a shirt that Alex had on, and there's still a very ugly battle over whether or not we believe that that shirt got blood on it when he got home and saw these two, killed,
Hmm.
or if it actually is blowback from shooting them.
Right.
Uh, and the forensic report says that shooting Maggie would likely have not caused any blowback because of the
Hmm.
way she was shot, the position she was in, but that shooting Paul would definitely have caused blowback that could have gotten on the shooter.
I mean, birdshot and buckshot. How could that
Hmm.
not? I mean, she was shot with
Yeah,
like a rifle bullet,
yeah,
and so that's not as destructive.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. So that shirt is one of the things we're going to hear a lot about because,
Hmm.
of course, both sides have expert witnesses saying, yeah, definitely, what was on the shirt definitely could have been blowback from shooting Paul. Of course, the defense's argument is that it most definitely couldn't have been, and this is literally just blood from, falling at the ground in front of his murdered family members and getting blood on him and trying to, save them or whatever. I It's tough to say. I
It is. Well, and
is it though? It isn't. I don't. Well,
the one expert says it's both. That it's
yeah.
well, the one expert says that he used the bottom of the shirt to wipe blood off his face
Yes.
with it. And if they can prove that, he didn't
Mhm.
get blood on his face checking on him,
Mhm.
you know.
Yep.
I don't know. It's very graphic. This is going to be a very graphic
Mhm.
trial for the jury, I think, which is really unfortunate for them.
Yeah. So that leads us to today, Monday, the 23rd.
Hmm.
And things got rolling this morning, right there in that courthouse that his whole family has served in for all these years. One of the things that the judge ordered was that a prominent photo of his grandfather be removed from the courthouse during the trial.
Yeah. How weird is that? Like they can't be venerating your
Mhm.
family while they're also trying you for
Yeah.
murder. It's
Yeah.
so strange.
Awful. Yeah. So, jury selection started this morning. We know a few things about that now. They sent out 900 jury summons. The first thing the judge did with the jury that was, the potentials that were assembled, was ask them to stand if they were familiar with Alex Murdaugh. And every single one of them stood. I'm kind of amazed this wasn't removed from this county in the first place.
Yeah.
Because, wow. Then one of the questions they were asking them was, do you feel like you could be impartial about this? And some people said no, and they were dismissed. One of the other
Mhm.
questions was if you have ever had any legal dealings with the defendant or any members of his family. And some
Mhm.
people had to leave because, yeah, they've been sued before by Alex or by his father or another
Sure.
member of his family. And so that's kind of how they're whittling it down, is like, how many of you have had legal dealings with these fools,
Mhm.
How many of you already think he's guilty? That's kind of
Right. Yeah.
the questions they're asking, and trying to whittle it down to a jury of an impartial jury of his peers. They're saying it could take anywhere from 3 to 5 days to get to that point to even be able to get rolling. So no big surprise. People in South Carolina are calling this the trial of the century. Is it? Not really, but
No, but I mean,
for them, hell
it
yeah.
is. For that community, definitely.
Hmm.
Well, and isn't he now facing something like 99 financial crimes, 99 charges in financial
Yeah.
crimes too?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a
Wow.
bunch. It's a bunch. And that's just the cliff notes, boys and girls.
Mhm.
That's all I wanted to cram into one episode. We've talked about this case a lot though, and so
Mhm.
you've heard us talk about it before likely, but that's where things sit right now. So obviously we're going to keep a close eye on it. We'll bring
Mhm.
you the highlights and the lowlights. I can't imagine what we're going to hear out of Harpootlian coming through this. He already has been super extra and dramatic.
Well, yeah, he didn't want the prosecution to be able to present the motive that they think is his motive, because that would make people think he's a bad person.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we all know he's a bad person already from all of the other
Hmm.
shit he is accused of doing.
Yes. Your
So,
Honor, it's not
this,
fair to say things about my client that make him look like he's guilty. Uh
please don't
huh.
say things that are true.
Wild.
Mm,
So obviously, our hearts are with people who loved Paul and Maggie.
yeah,
Her
they've been
Maggie's
so
family.
sort of lost in this whole thing, you
Yeah,
know?
they have, and they didn't ask for any of this. Neither did Paul
No.
and Maggie.
Mm-mm.
It's awful. So we'll keep you up to date on it though, because it's there's going to be plenty of fireworks to come. This is going to be
Oh,
very
yeah,
interesting. Yeah. So
most
with that,
definitely.
Kristi, I'm going to kick the mic back over to you for a true crime update.
Yes. Well, after what has seemed like a really long investigation, Alec Baldwin has been charged with involuntary manslaughter in the accidental shooting while filming the movie Rust.
Hmm.
Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was the victim.
Yeah.
And this is such a strange thing. They're filming a movie
Hmm.
using a gun that is a prop gun, is supposed to be a prop gun. It's not supposed to have live ammunition. And turned out that it did. And he accidentally shot and killed the cinematographer.
Hmm.
So there's been a lot of back and forth on this for quite some time over, will he be charged or not?
Hmm.
He's charged with two different types of involuntary manslaughter. Apparently, there are levels to involuntary manslaughter in New Mexico.
Hmm.
The first charge could get him up to 18 months in jail and a $5,000 fine.
Yeah.
The second charge could get him 5 years in.
Hmm.
So we're going to see where this all goes. I mean, the second manslaughter charge has a firearm enhancement, and that's part of where it would be more time.
Yeah.
So this all comes down to some wording that I'm going to take from People Magazine because it's helpful to understand it.
Yeah.
the difference between the two. So a jury would decide not only if he was guilty of the shooting, but under which definition of involuntary manslaughter he's guilty, right?
Mhm.
So let's talk about what that is, because this is a little bit confusing.
It is.
Let's see here. So with the firearm enhancement, they would have to prove that Baldwin acted recklessly with the gun and not just negligently.
Uh-huh.
So here's an example of reckless and negligent to give you an idea. One example of recklessness is playing Russian roulette,
Right.
while texting and driving is negligent.
Mhm.
So obviously, reckless is much more dangerous than negligent,
Right.
supposedly. I don't even
Yeah.
know if that really works, because texting and driving a car could cause some serious mayhem.
Right.
But what they're saying is, was he reckless or was he just negligent?
Yeah.
There's also the question about, is this his fault at all?
Yeah.
Because he was the actor. And what about the prop person who was supposed to load the gun with
Mhm.
the blanks, right? So there's just a lot of questions about what's really going to happen here. But the prosecution in this case has been really um, motivated, I guess you could say, to charge him with something.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases like this would have been the props person would have been charged, or this was just a terrible accident.
Yeah.
But we're looking at actual like manslaughter charges.
Mhm.
So we'll see what happens with it. There are
Yeah.
legal experts that are saying this is going to go nowhere. There's no
Yeah.
way that he'll be convicted on this. Some think he will get the smaller charge and maybe do a year in prison.
Mhm.
He's clearly going to fight it. He's not interested in taking any kind of plea. He is going to
Yeah.
go to trial on it. So we'll
Mhm.
see. It's kind of an interesting case, but I don't know. It's really really sad for the cinematographer and
Oh, it's so ugly. The whole thing
the
is so
family.
ugly.
It's really really sad. But
There's
it doesn't
so
seem
many
that anyone
questions.
meant for her to die. There's no intent here. So
No. And there's just so many weird questions about like what really happened with the gun, who did
why was
what,
it loaded like that?
right? And they're saying that she was in the position she was in because she was shot is because they were filming a shooting scene and she was coaching him and where he needed to be and
Hmm.
whatever. There's also the political aspect of it because uh gun activists and advocates and conservatives hate Alec Baldwin
Right.
because he played Trump for all those years
SNL.
on
Hmm.
SNL, and he's been an outspoken gun rights or gun control advocate. And
Hmm.
it's hard to not wonder like how politically motivated is this or isn't it? I'm not saying the piper doesn't need to be paid. I don't know. I think that he did himself a huge disservice by doing that interview where he said that he didn't pull the trigger, that
Yeah.
he had the gun in his hand, but he doesn't recall pulling the trigger. He shouldn't have talked about it at all.
No, no, it was a criminal investigation. He should have kept his mouth shut and
And
let the
people
police
were
do their job. And
really turned off by him saying that because obviously someone pulled the trigger or
the gun was
something
in his
really
hand.
malfunctioned. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. It could be a precedent setting case for sure.
It definitely could. So I don't know. We're gonna keep following it. We're gonna let you know.
Mhm.
I've kind of just followed in the background,
Mhm.
wondering like where are they gonna really go with this? But it
Well, the precedent of the Bruce Lee's son
yes,
when he was killed on set in similar circumstances and
hmm,
there were no charges. That
right,
that's one of the cases that'll be brought up a lot in this one, and
hmm,
we'll see. It's my gut feeling too that it won't ever amount to anything.
yeah,
Uh, but anyway, we'll see. Yeah, very
we will.
sad case.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's just unfortunate for everybody.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Well, we'll keep an eye out.
Yeah, we will. So, all righty. Well, that's it. That is our first episode of the week. We are going to be back on Wednesday with a brand new episode, as well as be back Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain for case updates, of which I'm sure there will be lots.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we'll have plenty to say by that point about this Alec Murdaugh. I think it's safe to call this a belligerent turd circus.
Oh, definitely.
It's going to get more and more belligerent, I think. So that's what we have going on. So thank you so much. As always, please like, share, comment, follow, all of the things. And thanks for being here. Have a good day. Please take care of yourselves, you guys. You deserve it. It's a wild world out there. So be good to yourselves. This has been yet another production of the True Crime Squad.
Bye, everybody.